Welcome, attendees. Thank you for joining us for the Go Virtual Career Pathway Conference. I'm Al Love. I'm the Senior Director of College and Career Readiness at the San Diego County Office of Education, and we will be moderating and hosting the room today. We ask that attendees keep themselves muted unless asked otherwise during the presentation, but feel free to use the chat to ask questions during the session. With that said, I'd like to introduce you my friend Ed Hidalgo from the Cajon Valley School District, as his team will be presenting the career development for the COVID generation. Ed, take it over.
Al, thank you very much. And thank you to you and Jewel and everyone at the San Diego County Office of Education for your support for this great conference. And it's an honor to be here with all of the participants today. Thank you for coming into our session. We're here in our World of Work lab right in Cajon Valley. It actually feels different and special that you get to come into our world to learn a little bit about the work that we're doing. I'm also so honored to be here with Chris Collins and Melanie Brandt. They call themselves TOSAs. I call them geniuses as it relates to the world of work. They're teachers who stepped out of the classroom, who are really inspired by the work that you'll see here today. And I think if I don't leave anything else with you today, what I want to leave you with is just what a privilege and honor it's been for me to step into this world and to see the true craftsmanship of our teachers in our district and how they've taken this new idea and brought it into the classroom, learned the language of career development, and are making this possible for students across grade levels. So we're proud of the work that we'll share with you today. They're some of the best. And I'll be popping some links into the chats as I step out here in a few moments and turn it over to them. But at least wanted to kick off with this concept of career development for the COVID generation. I'm going to move the slides there. As you all are living with this challenge, whether you're a parent, a grandparent, whether you're a teacher experiencing the impact on the families that you serve, we thank you for your work. This is a huge issue. We will continue to deal with this issue. Cajon Valley is open for instruction. 17,000 students, 27 schools. We're a K-12 now. We're in the process of developing our high school, our first high school of our first freshman class next year. But we're currently in hybrid and distance learning across the district. We've been open since April, offering childcare, offering summer enrichment, and moving back into classrooms. So this is a big topic, and we've continued with our practice throughout this entire period. I want you to know, as it relates to the world of work, more than 435 million jobs lost. We can look at these percentages: Black females, Hispanic females that have lost work during this time. A quarter of all young adults have lost work. And one of the most frightening statistics that I've seen is an estimation that 42% of the layoffs that have occurred in the United States could become permanent. And so when we think about career development for the COVID generation, we have to start thinking differently about the approaches in preparing young people, my own children who are stressed because of this. What is this going to mean, Dad, as I am now a senior in high school and I'm going to think about college next, and will I be able to get a job? What will it look like for me? And this tweet from the Georgetown Center on Education and Workforce is very interesting to me. Dr. Carnevale, if you don't know him, he's worth following, Georgetown CEW. But this statement, and it's one that Dr. Carnevale has made before, as he provides his opinion as it relates to what needs to happen as we look at education or education plans, free college, whatever it is. Here he is talking about the importance of career counseling and that it must be mandated and it must be a part of education. And the reality is that it's hard to make something accessible when we can't meet students where they are. And today, 491-1 is the average ratio of counselors to students in our schools. And many of you are probably thinking to yourselves, guys, like 1,000-1 in my school. 20% is the percentage of kids that actually go see their career services department in their universities. And you can look at the Strata research for that. But in higher ed, 1,800-1 is the ratio of higher ed advisor, college counselor to student. So how are we going to deliver career counseling when we don't have the humans, we don't have the people, we don't have the talent, we don't have the staff? And for many counselors who have gone through a process of their master's, maybe they've taken 1, maybe 2 classes in career development, max. So are we really equipping our young people with the caring adults that can support students with understanding their future possible selves? So we ask ourselves this question: how does a child aspire to a career they don't know exists? And that's the work that drives us. And when we think about career development in our district, it's about developing occupational identity. It's about building social capital. It's about a process that happens for every child, every grade, every year. And it's led by teachers in Cajon Valley, by teachers. Counselors are a wonderful support to this process, but it is led by teachers. And so 3 quick slides on the work that's been happening, the research from the University of San Diego, as we've studied our teachers and students as they have evolved in understanding and learning about this process. But I want you to see the mindset shifts. 168 teachers in the sample, how teachers are telling us that career development matters after learning about this process, learning about this language of career development, this belief even that teachers and schools should play a role in career development, up 12%. This was surveys, 2 years of longitudinal research. We'll run our 3rd year of longitudinal research this spring. This is the 2nd year sample. And then thirdly, that WOW improves the classroom experience. You're going to hear that from Melanie and Chris today. Secondly, you can see the progression, and Melanie and Chris are going to talk about the 4 levels of integration, but the progression from year 1 to year 2 of teachers learning how to implement these concepts, explore, simulate, meet a pro in practice. And you can see the advancement of teachers' confidence with these stages of career development in the classroom. And thirdly, what we're studying is this concept of possible selves, hope for possible selves. And we hope to release some infographics about this in the coming days and weeks about the research. But from year 1 to year 2, our middle school students, and you can see we have the largest sample size ever collected of middle school students' possible selves data. And our middle schoolers went from 75% of them being able to identify a vivid hope for possible self to 94% of students being able to identify a hope for possible self. And what does that mean? It means that a child can identify specifically and vividly a career that they're interested in the future. So that's what this work is all about. It wouldn't be possible without Melanie, Chris. We thank you for stepping into our world. And if you have any questions, please pop in the chat box and we'll be responding. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Miss Melanie Brandt. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm happy to be here to talk a little bit about what the world of work is and some stories that came out when I was in the classroom. So we often think, career development for students as young as kindergarten. How does that look? How does that work? Is that even possible? So we have seen it. And I taught my last couple years in the classroom in 4th grade. This is a picture on the left there of my final class that was to my roster, because I feel like now with going out to many classrooms, I have many students that I see. But here's my last class that I had. We started implementing the world of work that last year, integrating with the RIASEC, all the students learning about their own unique interests and claiming their 3 codes to what they see and kind of connect with. And then we started integrating our curriculum with some of the career simulations. And what happened that year, it was really a unique year. It was a special year. The students started to identify, okay, I'm a realistic, investigative, artistic person. This is what I like to do. This is how I spend my time. And I started to tailor my outcomes for projects based on the various different interests of the students. And slowly but surely, they also started to recognize their classmates' unique strengths, interests, and values. And they no longer saw each other's deficits, but their strengths. and they were no longer trying to fight for, let's put all the, the smart kids in a group because we're going to get a better project outcome, but they were diversifying and looking for their classmates to see the talents. So one of the projects was to draw a blueprint. So they all of a sudden started fighting over who was going to grab Caitlin in their group. Everybody wanted little Caitlin in her group. Well, Caitlin was a struggling reader and was pulled out for many minutes for her SAI. So she now had a place in the classroom and had value and felt wanted because her classmates knew her talents. And the little guy there, he had a Minecraft activity, and he did his Minecraft blocks, and he spelled out what spells wow, because that became his favorite subject. The last day of school, we had a great school year. The students wanted summer school. They didn't want to leave. But of course, we had to say, we have to leave. We have to go to summer. So the last day of school, I had to go file all his papers in the cume, opened up his cume. There I see a lot of suspensions. Looked through his cume. I saw up to 13 suspensions he had had from kindergarten to third grade. But in the fourth grade year, there was no sign of any need, or he never had a suspension. He now felt he had a place in the class. His classmates didn't see him as the behavior child and the child that had a little extra energy and would do all those sorts of things and distract the class. His value and his place was now seen as a positive, and he felt that as well. And so they all connected as a class, and the classroom community was amazing. They looked out for each other. So there was really some really deep connections made that year. They're now just began 7th grade. Throughout COVID, I get emails through many of them still today. And through COVID, we kind of kept in touch, just seeing how they were, checking in on them. So I saw a significant difference in the students, and they saw it in each other. And that's where this comes. Career development's a human process. So teachers and parents see the children at this young age. We can't wait till the future when they're juniors, seniors in high school. They get some time with their counselors. There's not a lot of time. Counselors are overwhelmed. There's a lot of things happening. So it's that human process, having conversations, seeing what their unique strengths and interests are. And as a teacher and a parent and anybody who's a guardian, having those conversations with, you're really talented in this area. You know that there's careers, or you could do that in the future. You can do that for a job, and really tailoring what you say and do with your child and having those conversations as young as kindergarten. So as I mentioned, the counselor ratio, I know locally here in El Cajon, the local high school that a friend of mine's a counselor, she has 500 students in her caseload. So it's hard to see them, and it's really difficult to find that career counseling time. And so that's where we want to shift the tools and the knowledge from the teachers to parents and anybody else that's in the child's life. This is a text I received, a very good friend of mine. I rave about my job all the time, talk about RIASEC and World of Work. And so she had an understanding of what I do. She's a therapist locally. And she had a student who came to her. It was about end of April. So we'd been kind of physically distanced from our teachers and our staff for about 6 weeks. So I got this text here. She just did a therapy session with the 5th grader who couldn't stop talking about her RIASEC and how validating it was. And so just with that, she wasn't exposed to it daily. She wasn't doing the normal classroom sessions, but 6 weeks being apart from her classmates in school, that's what she was talking about, and what was filling her void and happiness at her therapy session. And it came through it got back to me. And so we really thought this is what's so important, so wonderful for children. The mission of me. So those are just some little stories about how it's touched and it's touching us often. The actual integration of the world of work is based on the 3 core process, where you have the academic journey, the self-awareness, and the my story. And that self-awareness sits really important where they identify what their unique strengths, interests, and values are. And a lot of it's aligned to the RIASEC framework. And then the academic and career journey. So that's trying on different simulations, trying on different careers. Not to say that they have to choose something as young as a 2nd or 3rd grader, but that they understand what it takes and the interests and the skills for those careers. And then the my story, kind of being able to, what can they add to their resume later on? What experiences can they share? And continuing to add to this 3 core process. And our implementation framework, students explore, they simulate the career, meet professionals in the field, whether it's in person or we do it virtually. And then the practice. Older students may be able to have some sort of internship, mentorship experience, a really good simulation where maybe you bring partners in from the outside, from the community, come in and run through those simulations with students, giving them a sense of that practice and deciding, is this something I'd want to do? Or, you know, what's even more powerful is this isn't what I would really want to do, and this is why, so that they can identify stuff that they like and they don't like. And that's where we want to equip them with the tools for that.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Collins. I am Melanie's partner here as a World of Work coach. And Melanie mentioned equipping teachers with the tools to be able to integrate that framework. And what that starts to look like is in Core 1, students become aware of their unique strengths, interests, and values through a number of methods that we use. We like to anchor ourselves in interests because a body of research shows that interests have the highest correlation to job performance, income, and satisfaction. So we have our students self-assessing their RIASEC interest themes through a variety of activities. We also have strengths and values conversation starters. So that way teachers can discuss what are students naturally talented at and what do they value in a work environment? Do they want to wear flip-flops to work or three-piece suit? Do they want to work inside or do they want to work outside? Where is it that they want to be going when they go into their world of work? In Core 2, students are exposed to a variety of academic and career journeys that they otherwise might not have known existed. So you can see in the graphic on the right, the level 1 implementation, like Melanie mentioned. Using the example of a photographer, that would mean that students have heard about a photographer and they know that photographers go out and take pictures. For a level 2 simulation, students are able to tinker with it and they're able to put on the mask of a professional and go out and actually practice taking photos like a photographer would. And in level 3, they're able to meet a pro or meet someone who actually does that job. And then level 4, they're able to actually practice it. Does that mean that they go out and practice on their own? Or does that mean that they're able to then go and say, hey, I'm old enough and I can start my own photography studio or do my own side gig doing photos for people? Any of those are a possibility for our students. On the World of Work network, we have 78 career simulations built out that we're able to give to our teachers. And how each teacher unpacks it is completely unique to their style and their personality. All of them are in Google Docs and slides, so that way teachers can integrate into whatever system they're using, whatever LMS, and adjust to where they are able to make it their own. We also have the Meet a Pro section, which could happen live or it could happen virtually. You can see examples here where we're able to tap into our parent population. We're able to tap into local businesses and government organizations and expose students to careers that they otherwise might not have known existed. You can see in the tweet in the center there, we had professionals from Illumina, a local biotech company in our area, come on and be able to give a glimpse into their world of work to the students. In Core 3, students are then given the tools they need in order to be able to tell their story. That could be through presentation literacy, like our TEDx Kids at El Cajon event that we have each spring, or it could be a more practical example, like students sitting down and writing a resume or asking for letters of recommendation. All of this is in preparation for the classic first job interview question. Tell me a bit about yourself. Of course, we were rocking and rolling in the classroom, but on March 13th, like the rest of the world, we had to adjust. So now Melanie is going to unpack how we pivoted and adjusted so that way we could continue supporting our students through the COVID pandemic.
All right, thanks, Chris. So our district launched from the central. It took a few weeks for everybody to kind of grasp their bearings and such. And so the team up here at the district office created playlists for each grade level, so that teachers, they could go as designed or they could add their own unique little, any of their special things they wanted to do or their own curricular areas. But coming from the district office, this is what was given to by each grade level. It was sent out on Mondays for teachers. And so every Wednesday was the World of Work. It was Wow Wednesday. It also was a day where teachers were going to be offline and students had to work independently on tasks. And so our task was to digitize some of the materials with in mind that some of the students may have limited access to adults helping them. There's, you know, we have a very diverse district with many different languages. So we had to ensure that students could understand the slides. And so we read aloud all the directions. We have speakers so that the vocabulary was easy. We integrated some of our GLAD strategies for our second language students, and that even our special needs population could also access the materials. And so we designed 8 different lessons kind of in grade span. So you have the TK to 2, 3 to 5, and then the 6 to 8. And all the students could do is have some choice in what they wanted to explore. And it was about a 30 to 45-minute lesson that they could work on. So this was the overall kind of our e-learning materials. One of the activities for the 3rd to 5th and then our middle school was they could discover their own unique RIASEC. So whether they had it in class or it was brand new to them, the materials we designed a little differently. So it was new learning if they'd seen it before, and then it was new stuff for somebody who'd never had it yet in their classroom, because we did in school early. So a middle school student would go through all the different RIASECs and they'd explore. This is the enterprising slide. And so there's videos that were designed by the University of Buffalo. They're free on YouTube that go over each RIASEC. And students watch the video and kind of assess, does this sound like something I like? Does this sound like me? And that's how they self-assess and claim their 3 RIASECs. So there's some motivations and values that they can kind of review. And then there was always a reflective piece, like thinking about how to connect that enterprising theme or the conventional theme. How does it connect in the real world? So they'd have to reflect here on the slide. So it was all on Google Slides, so it could be made copies and students could actually enter information. For our 3rd to 5th grade students, we took all the careers. So a 3rd grade might explore the forester, a 4th grade might explore landscape architect, and a 5th grade is going to explore horticulturalist. We did give the students access to all 3 in case, for example, like a 5th grader hadn't quite got to the horticultural career in their academic year, and maybe they were new to the district or their teacher didn't quite implement the year before, and they could go back and relearn or learn the other careers. So we talked about how strengths, interests, and values of the career. So they had to kind of start to think and fill in. And you can see how the speech bubbles, the little microphone bubbles, would read aloud for the students who had either difficulty reading or understanding the language. So they would do this for all of the different simulation careers. And then they would go through and decide, which career do I want to focus on? Which one is really more interesting to me? So we didn't want to just assign one and say every 3rd grader is going to do this one, every 4th grader is going to do this. There was some choice in the exploration. So when they got to this realistic doer, they would decide if a forester sounds more interesting, landscape architect, or horticulturalist. And then they'd go through and there's some activities that they could follow up. There's some vocabulary, there's different activities for them to learn about that career that could all be done digitally. Each of our lessons have some sort of essential question. So this one, how do environmental conditions affect the growth and health of a plant? It also connects to kind of some of the science standards. It has them thinking of how to solve like a problem or an issue and being aware more about their environment. And so as they're learning, there's clues and information that they're learning to be able to answer this question at the end of the simulation. They all have some sort of learning intentions so that the students understand going forward, what are they going to be learning? What will they understand by the end of the simulation? And they were designed for that down Wednesday where teachers weren't physically there or through the Zoom, but teachers could follow up. They could like pre-learn the information, and the Thursday, Friday in the class somehow integrated time to reflect upon what the students had learned and further out the exploration. And that's where we didn't want to lose that human connection and that human process piece, that we encourage the teachers to follow up with some information, have the students turn in, share, what did they learn, what did they see, answer the essential questions. So there was always something that they could follow up with. Once students have explored the RIASEC, understood strengths, interests, values, they've explored some of the career simulations, there's always an important piece to actually meet the professional. And what we typically would do ahead of time before COVID is that we could go out, a team of us, mostly us, the 3 of us here, Ed, Chris, and I, and we'd go out to the workplaces and we tried to do things within our local community. And we would film and monitor and follow. They would take us around their world of work. Well, when COVID hit, we had to shift a little bit. And so you see that we had Illumina, our local biotech company, Zoomed in with some students at our local middle school via Zoom and still could take them through their world of work and talk to the students. It's done live through the NEPRIS platform, where they could actually be talking to the professional and at the end ask questions. And so that's really what the students look forward to most, is being able to interact with the professional. We have the video there. It's where we went out to the police station, and I'll go ahead and show it. It looks like we have a little time. So it's the forensics lab, our local.
When I was a kid, I loved to be outside and kind of get in the nitty gritty and dissect things. Rats, birds, and that kind of got me into science. I liked to see how things worked, and I was okay being around different dead things. It didn't really gross me out. It was just really fascinating to me. On the RIASEC, I'm an R and an I. On the RIASEC, I am an I and an A. I really like figuring stuff out and solving the puzzle, but I love to dance.
When I was a kid, I was a bit of an organization nerd. I definitely couldn't go to bed unless my room was organized. That's definitely followed me all the way up to my career, which is that I'm still an extremely organized person. On the RIASEC, I am definitely a C. Definitely. Definitely.
Whatever you love to do, there's the perfect fit for you out there.
Okay, so those were our professionals from the forensic lab here in El Cajon. And that was a little promo video following our live NEPRIS chat with them. But we could see that communication and talk, if a student came across, the exploration for a police officer, and they automatically, I don't want to be a police officer, that's not for me. But you could have that conversation where actually at the police station, there's lots of different careers that probably fit within something you like to do. And so looking and meeting the professional, they can say, wow, that sounds like a really interesting job, or still, that's just not for me. That doesn't fall within what I like to do. So there's different ways to meet the professional. Now, many times we can have the pros actually come in physically, but we know that sometimes is hard to do. The professional has to take time off of work, but through this platform and through the Zoom technology now, we can invite any parents. And that's what we try to do also, is when we have parent sessions and parent groups, we try to reach out, well, what do you do with your world of work? Do you mind doing a parent session? Would you like to do one of our Meet a Pros? At the very beginning, there was pictures of the pros. At the beginning, we were getting this going. I had my husband, a carpenter, go out to his world of work, and he phoned in and Zoomed in with the kids. And my daughter was in one of our TK classes. So it was just, great experience. Her dad was on the big screen. She got to ask him a question. And so it was really engaging for her and her classmates. So we trying to tap in more to our community and our parents as well, because they're our best resources is right here with our parents. Okay.
So of course, when COVID hit, we knew that we needed to rethink our professional learning as well. So we switched to offering digital badges for our teachers that are all competency-based, and teachers are able to work through this information at their own pace and then be able to earn a badge while having human connection with both Melanie and I, so we can have a conversation and offer feedback. Our family and community engagement also had to go virtual as well. And we were very lucky to be able to partner with the Federal Student Aid Department and put on 2 parent town halls that parents were able to listen into and learn about how they can start to better equip their students to make financial decisions as early as middle school by creating an FSA ID. We also are starting back up our parent sessions where now we're able to reach a much broader audience through Zoom like we're doing right now, where we're able to speak to all of the middle school parents and all of the elementary school parents at one time in our district. Now, I had the privilege of being able to teach 8th grade math before assuming this role. And I really enjoyed integrating this career development framework into my class because it always led to fruitful discussions, particularly by the end of the year. So all throughout the year, we would be engaging in discussions about the RIASEC, which we've been mentioning throughout this presentation. Students were able to self-assess 2 or maybe even 3 things that interest them from this RIASEC framework. So students could be artistic creators, where they value self-expression, social helpers, who are fueled and motivated by helping others, investigative thinkers who like to tinker with things and solve problems. Realistic doers are hands-on physical doers. Enterprising persuaders are people who like to lead, sell, and influence. And conventional organizers are people who like to work with data and numbers and machines. So by the end of the year, I would always have a conversation with my students on, you're about to enter into high school. You now know yourself so much better because we've had these conversations around the language of strengths, interests, values. And now there are CTE pathways that you can go into at your next level. And we would always discuss the CTE pathways through the lens of RIASEC. I had one student in particular who, similar to the story that Melanie shared earlier today, had behavior issues before coming into my class, was able to self-assess and think through his unique strengths, interests, values, and see maybe where he would want to fit in the world of work through exposure to academic and career journeys. And he always self-assessed as realistic. And at the end of the year, when we were looking at these CTE pathways and discussing next steps for them on their world of work journey, he came up to me and said, Mr. Collins, I had no idea that I could start taking auto mechanic classes as early as next year. All I do when I go home is watch YouTube videos of cars. I love it. I am fascinated. I did not know that I could get started this soon. So we were able to have a conversation with this young man and his parents and say, hey, check it out. It's open enrollment. You can go. And by the time this student graduates from high school, he's going to be ready to go into the industry and immediately start his work. We also work with our local workforce partnership, the San Diego Workforce Partnership, on exposing students to what the priority areas are here in San Diego County. And as you can see from these posters, all of these jobs are categorized by the RIASEC. So that way students can know their interests, what their interest themes are, and then be able to look at jobs within the area that are in high demand. And then we can have that human conversation on, that's fantastic. This aligns with your interests. Let's talk about how to get there. What education do you need? What can you start doing today? What practical experience can you start building right now? So that way you can enter into one of these priority sectors. I also noticed that some folks in the chat were mentioning the essential skills. We're also touching on these with our students through the essential skills that came out through the San Diego Workforce Partnership, where we're trying to introduce them to the skills that no matter what sector they go into, no matter what job they have, they are going to need to know these skills. And we're bridging that gap right now with our students by having conversations as teachers within the classroom. We are also launching a financial empowerment curriculum that we're building in conjunction with the Federal Student Aid Department. That's going to handle topics like, how do I make choices? How do I get new stuff? How do I borrow? How do I earn? How do I invest? And how do I protect? Right now, there's $1.5 trillion in current student outstanding loan debt. We know that a lot of that money is represented by decisions that start as early as 8th grade, whether students complete an FSA ID or not, and whether or not they're preparing to complete the FAFSA with their parents and be eligible for all of the aid that might be out there for them. We also know that there's about $400 billion a year of unclaimed aid that's left on the table every single year that students aren't tapping into. So we're also trying to empower our students to not only be able to make good career decisions, but also be able to make good financial decisions by looking at what they can do now in middle school and high school. So now we know that we just threw a lot at you. We went through the 3 core process and unpacked a little bit about strengths, interests, values, the academic and career journey, and the My Story. We know that right now our classrooms don't look like this, and we are just as excited as you all are to get back to living in a situation to where we can go into our classrooms and have that human connection. Even though we're not having it right now, we do know that there still is a need, and it still is very important for our students to have that human connection, to learn about their unique strengths, interests, values, and learn about jobs that exist in the community. Because like Ed mentioned in the beginning, how can a child aspire to a career that they don't know exists? And that is happening in the elementary level right now as students are going through simulation. That's also happening in high schools with CTE pathways, to where even if a student enters into a CTE pathway, maybe they go into an agriculture pathway, they're learning about that industry, and then their eyes are also being opened up to different areas that they could go into within agriculture. Maybe they're going in on the livestock side. Maybe they're going in on the business side. But no matter what direction our students are heading, it all comes back to knowing their unique strengths, interests, values, and being made aware of what jobs exist within the community. Right now, we're going to open it up for Q&A. So if anybody has any questions, we know that we just threw a lot of information at you. You can feel free to unmute, or you can drop your question in the chat. And if you think of a question later on, please do take down our contact information. We are always able to support wherever you're at on your world of work journey. And while we're getting those questions ready, we're going to play a quick video here from one of our local students here in Cajon Valley who had a Meet a Pro experience with our superintendent,
Hi, my name is Sammy, and I'm from RIASEC, and today I'm going to be
Dr. Miyashiro. And this is a little bit about his Meet a Pro and Practice It experience.
Hi, my name is Sammy, and I'm from RIASEC, and today I'm going to be shadowing Dr. Miyashiro, doing a level 4 simulation. And we're going to go check out the world of work at Greenfield Middle School. Dr. Miyashiro is teaching me how to be a superintendent because my future career that I wanted to be is a superintendent, and we have the same RIASEC code. I like traveling to different schools and seeing how other schools progress and how others are different from other schools. When I'm a superintendent, I'm going to be focusing on trying to get my people to work hard and to make my district a better place and to make my schools a good school and to make my schools unique and different from others but still a nice school.
How do you think A shows up in the superintendent?
A is artistic. For me, artistic shows up as doing unique stuff, doing different stuff, from getting out of the box, doing stuff that I'm not comfortable with, meeting other people, trying new stuff, and do stuff that I already do. And I think there's a big possibility for me to be a superintendent.
So that was Sammy. He, oh God, Chris, we need to step in. Sammy was in my 4th grade class after we had studied park naturalist. And so we had a big day that we were going to have a simulation, and they were going to share out their park naturalist kind of projects. And I told them on Friday, hey guys, just when you come to school Monday, just be ready to share out your park naturalist projects. We have some visitors coming to kind of check it out. So Sammy came to school Monday, you line the kids up and you hear chatter, and you know that something's going on, and you Sammy this, Sammy that. So I kind of look at the line, and there's Sammy in a 3-piece suit. He had a suit on, and, kind of shocking. I said, Sammy, what are you doing in the suit? And he said, well, you said we had special guests. And so I wanted to dress up. And so, of course, I just was like, well, you look so handsome. This is amazing. I said, let's go find out who the top person is at the park system, the National Park System, and that's going to be your role today. So we went and looked up, who is in charge of this National Park System. And there it's called a superintendent, and the gentleman in the picture had a suit on just like Sammy. I said, your job today is to greet visitors. You're going to introduce yourself as a park superintendent. And our actual superintendent, David Miyashiro, came to the visit that day, and they started chatting, and they aligned. Sammy said, what's your RIASEC? Dr. Miyashiro shared his, and they aligned that they were the same. And then Sammy learned through talking with Dr. Miyashiro his job as a school superintendent. And so then after that, Sammy's curiosity spoke, and he was like, wow, what's that? I want to do that. And then I had a conversation with him. He's the boss of the boss. And we kind of talked about the pathway to become a superintendent. You go to college, you get your bachelor's, you go to teaching school, then you become.
I just want to say hello to our viewers who are joining us virtually, and of course to our panelists who are joining.
Oh, sorry. So then he learned the kind of the path to you become a teacher, then a few years experience, you become an administrator, and eventually make your way up. And so right there, I was able to have that human connection, that process with him, that process through what it takes to be that. And then months later, Dr. Miyashiro invited him to go along with visits to schools. And, he said the highlight of the day was riding in his car and there were snacks in the glove box. So that really touched Sammy. And to this day, he still aspires as a 7th grader to be a school superintendent. So just a touching story of that, meeting the professional, speaking the RIASEC language, making connections, even our admin come in or anybody visiting the schools come in with the language and can make connections with our students. So just a real neat story from my student, Sammy.
So thank you very much, Melanie and Chris. We'd love to field some more questions. Obviously, we've been typing in the chat box. There's a bunch of really interesting things that are happening, including a new relationship that we've just announced with a literacy company that's called Beable. They have a technology that supports Lexile growth and literacy. And hopefully some of you will read that press release. And folks have been asking us, well, why would you partner with a literacy company? Why is language so important when you're trying to make a connection between students and the world of work? And there was a statement that was made at the National Career Development Association conference by Dr. Mark Savickas, who's one of the global leaders in the field of career counseling and career development. You can find his talk on YouTube. And he stated that the self that a person makes themselves into is a function of language. And if you don't have a word for it, you don't have it. I spent 20 years in human resources and talent acquisition, hiring people across different types of career areas, from senior vice presidents to custodians. And it was always amazing when you sit down with folks in an interview process and how often they would struggle with, questions as simple as, tell me about yourself. And I think about the young people in our district. 30% of them are refugees. 17,000 students. We're very familiar with the concept of zip code destiny, and we're trying to break that. And we realize that if our children don't have the language to understand or be able to articulate who they are and who they want to become, how will they be prepared for that interview when it does come, whether it's an internship or a job opportunity? And the language of the RIASEC is so important. And this is what we've been studying, but students are absolutely able and wanting to be able to identify themselves through their interests. And Holland's reason of only having 6 themes was because of its simplicity and knowing that the human mind can only remember so many things. So as we've deployed this in classrooms, starting the early grades, kids are excited to claim their themes. They're not pigeonholed, they're not tracked, they're not stuck in one area. Kids from early grades, they know my interests might change over time. I was S last year, but this year I'm E, or I'm more C, or I'm more R. And that's beautiful. That's wonderful. That's part of the process. That's agency. That's personalization. That's providing the child the opportunity to be able to claim their own interests based on who they are. And the power is that the teacher now has the common language with the child. And because of the work that Melanie and Chris are doing, now the families are starting to have this language as well. And remember, the ONET, the government's database of jobs, classifies thousands of careers by the RIASEC. And major universities like Ohio State, Oklahoma State, Arizona State classifies all their majors by the RIASEC. So imagine a child having the opportunity to explore a minimum of 54 world of work experiences from kinder to 8th grade. Might they make a better decision around which CTE pathway to move into? You saw Chris's wonderful chart that links CTE pathways to each of the RIASEC theme areas. Where our local community college, Grossmont and Cuyamaca, they're starting to classify their pathways by RIASEC as well. So again, interests are so important because they have this high correlation to career success, performance, and income, more so than any other personality measures. If we want to look at satisfaction, that's why we include values. If we want to look at strengths, we look at talents. It's different. You can't just say that we're going to have a strengths-based district and that's going to help our kids be ready for the world of work, because there's no correlation between strengths and talents and the job and the career. At least there isn't research that points to it. And that's why we ground in Holland, because we have decades of research that point back to it. The trick and the unique piece about our work is that Melanie and Chris and our team and many of our teachers and our partner districts have learned how to integrate this into the classroom and make it seamless with the things that teachers are already teaching. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Yes, you received a lot of information today. Yes, it's a human process, but that's career development. And if we want to prepare every child and bring a social justice element to every child finding their place in the world, this is the way it needs to be done, because otherwise you can see the results we've been achieving so far. So we have to do something different. And really the trick is through our teachers. They're the best ones to have a relationship with the child. 180 days as a matter of fact. So we hope this has been useful today. Again, please reach out to us if you have any questions. I've seen we've had 49, 50, 51 folks on the Zoom. We hope that was interesting. And you know, it's an honor to serve you. We're here to serve you. The team is here to serve you. We have our masks too. When we step away, we wear our masks. So we're following we're following procedures, but it wouldn't be without Melanie and Chris. Please don't hesitate to reach out to them. And we look forward to advancing the work more so than we are today. So any last words by the team? Because I think we're on our time here.
That's right.
So
Yes.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate your time. Thank you. And what you do for our children.
Yes, thank you so much for all the work you're doing. We look forward to connecting soon.